everyone. My name is Morgan Roth. I am from our life science department here at Long Beach City College. I teach anatomy and physiology. I am a graduate of the Culture Curriculum Audit Program. I did it in the summer, so I'm very honored to be back here talking to you today. I'm going to talk about ways to facilitate community building in an online setting, which we all know is very tricky. So I'm talking about some of the things that I've been trying in my classes, as well as some of the lessons that I've learned along the way. Hopefully we can learn from each other's mistakes. So let's start off with a welcoming homepage and syllabus. Now, I'm not going to go through this because I know that the program talks about this a lot, but I just want to re-emphasize the fact that your first impression is your lasting impression. And so if you can start off with, feeling inclusive and inviting and open communication, maybe a little fun, it really just creates an environment that is a good environment for collaboration and communication, right? So you want to kind of set the tone right from the first start. And then with your own introduction as well. So I know most of us do some kind of introduction, and for years I just was like, I'm a professor, I started this time. And then over the years, I started thinking about, well, I should probably introduce myself as a person. And it was amazing results because I felt like when they saw me as a person, they were more willing to talk to me, and it was just more approachable. Lines of communication was open. And really, if you think about it, education, learning is just communication. That's what it really boils down to. So if I can just sort of role model this sort of open dialogue, I find that it kind of spills over for the rest of the semester. So that's what I've been doing lately. I created a little introduction video for myself for this semester, and I put it right on my homepage, and I talk about, the normal stuff about where I've taught and all those, but also about, talk about how the fact that I grew up in Guam, which some people found interesting. There's my husband there. I've got 2 kids, that kind of, a person, I'm a real person. And it has the kind of added benefit of when they see you as a person, they sort of treat you as a person as well, as opposed to like some grading robot. And so things like if my son just kind of happens to poke his head in during a Zoom meeting, they're not surprised. They knew I had kids, and it's just not as big of a deal. So they kind of give you some of that leniency that we all need, because we are people. We're people here. Okay, let's see. So my kind of passion for this sort of creating community, I came from that very first semester when we were all kind of chaotically stumbling onto online. And I was talking to a student at the end of it, and they just said, I felt like I was learning alone. I was just alone. And I was like, oh no, that's terrible. I never want to happen to that. So I've been really trying to build in as much easy communication, collaboration, and community into the class as much as I can. And so one of the things that I found really helpful was to kind of put the students into study groups right at the beginning. And so they have some sort of support structure. So if you think about it, if you have a typical face-to-face class, you come in, you sit down, and especially in like a science room where you work in tables, you have like an automatic little group already set up and ready for you. So I was trying to recreate that online. And so I created these study groups, but I did learn some lessons that I'd like to share with you, some evolution over the couple of semesters. The first is just the name study group. And so I found that when I use the word study group, when students create their own study groups, then there was some confusion about what is which. And so I've actually switched over to calling them virtual tables, kind of, with the image of like a science classroom where you put into these work tables. But, you could use like project groups or learning groups or, that kind of thing. Okay, so just sort of already in there. Now, I think it's important to create these sort of from the get-go, to create like a cohort kind of, structure so that they can move through the class kind of together. But I also found that it was really important to incorporate some flexibility into these groups. And so that if some problems arise, people don't get along or whatever, there is some, they can actually move themselves out. Okay, so one of the ways that I did that was when you create the groups, then you go back and increase the number, the maximum number above the number of people in the group. And that gives the little wiggle room so that people can move out if necessary, right? You don't want to have people, you don't want people to feel like they're stuck. You want them to feel like they've chosen these people. These are their people and they're comfortable with these people. Okay, yes, I definitely learned that as we went through. And then the last thing, and this is actually I'm most excited about, this is what I've been doing just this semester, is I figured out a way to sort of integrate these study cohort type groups into Canvas so that when I put them in breakout rooms in Zoom, that they'll be working with the same people that they worked with in their study groups, that they've been working on projects with, that they're comfortable with. And the reason this came about is because I do synchronous Zoom meetings. And during the Zoom meetings, I always use breakout rooms. And I would pop into these breakout rooms and I would notice it was just like everyone was quiet. They're all acting kind of weird around each other. I'd see lots of black boxes with their videos off. And I just didn't feel like people were working together. I didn't feel like there was a lot of dialogue there. And so I was like, well, what can we do? And so what I do actually is when I create the breakout rooms, instead of automatically assigning them so that they're with random people, I just let participants choose, and you just the number of groups, and then they just choose the breakout room that corresponds to their group number, and there we go. And so since I've been doing this semester, when I come into the rooms, they're talking to each other, they're obviously comfortable, they know how to collaborate with each other, and it's so much smoother. They just start working right away. There's none of that awkward, like learning, who are these people kind of thing. So I feel like this has revolutionized the breakout rooms for my class. So I really recommend that. Okay, so once you create, part of the reason that these study groups are so helpful is because it sort of reinforces the idea that there's not two people in the room, right? It's not the instructor and the student, it's everybody else, and we can all help each other, and we can all learn from each other, and we can also, support each other. And so there's a couple other ways to kind of reinforce that as well. One thing that I've been using is the Q&A forum. And this is great because not only do I get to answer the questions and that everyone will get the answer, but as we do the Q&A forums, I encourage the students to answer each other's questions if they know it, right? So if you're going along and you know an answer, just go ahead and give it to them. And I think that really reinforces the idea that it doesn't have to all come from the instructor. We're all in this together. All the students are in this together. Now, one lesson I learned with that very first semester, I created my Q&A form and it just got longer and longer and longer. And you found that you had to scroll through all of these posts in order to get to the more recent ones. And I found that people weren't doing it as often. And I think it was just because, it's so hard to look at. And so what I started doing is I just create a new one every unit, or maybe every exam. That's what I've been doing. And then that way, you don't have to look through as much material. Okay, so that's how it worked pretty well. Just sort of create a new one every so often. And that way they don't have to scroll through all the past material. Another thing that I did that I thought has been pretty successful is I created a little forum for students to share with each other any of their discovered resources. And this works really good for my class, which is anatomy, where, if you see an online game or a Quizlet that was helpful, you just put the link in there with the idea that the more we share, the more we all have. And so I think it's really kind of been very helpful for them to understand that, again, we're all in this together. We're a community of learners, right? There's not two people in the room. We're all here. So I think that's been very helpful. And that brings us to the collaborative projects. So my collaborative projects, they are all done in the same study group. So again, within their little cohort that they move through. And so with the projects, I definitely think they are worthwhile. I think that the students get a lot out of them, opportunities for them to learn from each other, and a little extra motivation to collaborate for the students who are a little bit reserved. I really think that the students get a lot out of it. I'm not going to lie, it's a lot of work for the instructor just to kind of facilitate these projects. You have to make sure that you connect them with the tools and the resources that they need in order to get to those projects. Make sure that they have access to all of the, like the Chromebooks if they need it, or tell them about free resources like the Zoom. And one thing that I've started doing this semester, which I found really helpful, was at the end of my synchronous meetings, I just sort of left the breakout rooms open so that they could go back in and talk with their groups if they needed anything to discuss. So I found that to be a really good way, because now I feel like more of the students are participating, more of the students know what's going on, and it's just been a really great, really wonderful experience, honestly. Yeah. So, one other thing is, I suggest, if you are going to do collaborative projects, I really suggest that you require a contributions page. The first semester I did it, I didn't require it, and I was just like, how? I had some people say, well, this person didn't participate and this other person did, and it was just confusing. And so it was nice to have like a very, this is the list of what everybody did, and that way all the points were awarded appropriately. So that's suggested. Okay, we're getting close to done. So one thing that I've always kind of done as part of my classroom, and I've really tried to bring it into the online environment, is just to create some healthy competition. And I find that there's nothing quite motivating like a little healthy competition. You can review the material, you're having fun, it's just sort of light. So you can do Kahoot games. Those are easy and fun, and the students seem to like them. Or one thing that I did, and I teach anatomy, was I put them into their breakout rooms. And then what I did was, it's just a PowerPoint presentation. And so what they can do is they can just drag these over, put them in order. First one done wins. And it's just fun and exciting. And, so anytime you can create a fun environment, the learning, that's where learning happens, right? When you're having fun. Okay. So the last thing I want to say, I'm almost done. Last thing I want to say is I think sometimes we're so focused on getting through the material and staying on topic and being focused, which is a good thing, but I don't think that we need to completely ignore the casual conversation part of a classroom, right? You come in a couple minutes before the instructor starts talking, you just sort of spark up some conversation. I think that that's an important kind of component of building structures that support these students. And so what I've done is just sort of peppered through my modules, just some optional fun, just for fun posts. And I think that it really kind of gets the students talking to each other, builds some connections, and those connections then carry on into the projects, which again, really supports the material for my class. Okay, so even though it's not directly related to the material, I do think it supports the material to have these just for fun posts. And just fun. And also it makes them fun for me, right? And when I'm having fun, the students are having fun and we're all learning better. So my last little note for everyone, I tell my students this all the time, you've got to make fun to have fun. Okay, thanks for listening. Hopefully something was helpful for you. See you later.